Alright, y'all, Season 2, Episode 3 of House of the Dragon starts tomorrow, so let's recap everything that happened on Season 2, Episode 2. We kick off the episode with the aftermath of Jaehaerys' death, and it is just absolute chaos in the Red Keep.
I'll kill them! I'll kill them all!
Understandably so, King Aegon is furious. So furious, in fact, that he just completely destroys the stone replica of the city that Viserys made.
This is war! I declare war!
You heard that right. And everybody he believes had something to do with Jaehaerys' death will be his enemy. And I mean everyone. We then catch up with Aemon, who's made it back to his room, and he sees that the secret passage leading to the tunnels is open, revealing to him how Blood and Cheese made it inside without anyone noticing. We then jump over with Otto, who is paying Alicent a visit to discuss the situation. And speaking of Alicent, she is in a horrible shape herself. And being filled with sorrow and guilt, she claims that the gods are punishing her for her past sins. In attempts to calm her down, Otto reassures her and says that they will find the culprits and exact revenge. Though hearing this doesn't make Alicent feel any better either.
And where were you? The Lord Commander of my King's Guard.
I was abed, your grace, having ordered the night's watch.
Ugh, lying ass. You see, what he meant to say was, I was lying in bed with your mama, but, you know, purity, oaths, and whatnot. And then enters Loras, who reports that he has found one of the suspects responsible for Jaehaerys' death. And he says that it's a gold cloak. This would of course mean that they were betrayed by somebody on the inside, which of course makes Aegon even more angry.
I'll kill him myself.
We do well to get what information we can from the blackguard.
Though Aegon is very clearly blinded by revenge, Otto stops him from acting rashly and sends Loras to do his work, aka interrogation and torturing for answers.
A funeral progress. Let them see the child. Let them look upon the works of this pretender to the throne.
Yep, so the plan is to hold a public funeral for the citizens to showcase Rhaenyra as a murderous queen. Not only just a murderous queen in this instance, but one that goes out of her way to target children.
No. I will not have my little son's body dragged through the street like a dead dog.
Not dragged, honored!
Though he does show resistance, Aegon is eventually persuaded by his mother Alicent to proceed with these theatrics. But by no means does he like this kind of approach. Now the next person to convince is Helaena, and man oh man is she messed up.
When the people share our grief, they draw closer to us.
But I don't want them closer. I don't know them.
Sometimes we have to pretend.
Why?
We are representatives of the throne. We have a duty.
After that, Alicent tries to bring up the incident that Helaena walked in on with her and Kristen Cole, but she quickly shuts that down. Because understandably so, she doesn't really have the capacity to think about anything but her, deceased child. And so the funeral begins. But meanwhile, let's check in on the suspect that Larys has in custody. And yep, he's got the right guy. He was able to catch blood. However, Cheese is a bit more difficult because he doesn't know his real name. All that he knows about him is that he's a rat catcher. And he tells Larys that as well, along with Daemon being the person that hired them.
Are you going to hurt me?
No. But I cannot vouch for his grace.
No, he cannot, and Aegon wastes no time. As for how the funeral is going, it is going horribly, especially for Helaena. And as if things couldn't get any worse, this happens. So as they're stuck here, the citizens take this opportunity to attempt to get as close as possible to Alicent and Helaena, and almost immediately Helaena just loses it. Meanwhile, Rhaenyra has just received word that she's being blamed for what happened to Jaehaerys. Being a mother that's experienced the loss of a child, she says that she would never do that, especially a child that had nothing to do with Lucerys' death. And if you remember in the meeting, she explicitly said that she wanted Aemond, and Jaehaerys has nothing to do with Aemond. But just because she wouldn't doesn't mean that Daemon wouldn't. When confronting Daemon, he says that it was a mistake, and that he explicitly gave instructions to go after Aemond. And this prompts Rhaenyra to ask what were the instructions if they could not find Aemond. And if you remember, Cheese asked the same thing that night, where we didn't audibly get the answer, but we did see him smirk. Rhaenyra then asks Daemon if he accepts her as his queen, where he's not able to give an answer. and therefore, she says she can't trust him. And poetically enough, just like her father couldn't trust him.
You struck down a child.
It was a mistake.
You're pathetic.
Rhaenyra then summons Bela, and she tells her tomorrow morning to take Moondancer and to keep a watch on King's Landing. This is so Rhaenyra knows what course they take next. Bela accepts. She then asks about her father Daemon, where Rhaenyra simply says that he must follow his own path. We then get a quick scene on how Criston Cole deals with his guilt, aka by ignoring it, compared to how Alicent tries to deal with her guilt, which is by drowning it out. Moving on to a little later, we see Criston Cole getting on to Eric with an A. I'm going to have to start specifying now because it's going to get a little confusing later on. But he gets on to Eric with an A about his cloak because it was dirty, and demands that he gets a fresh one.
The white cloak is a symbol of our purity. We so easily sully our ancient honor.
Oh boy. But either way, Sir Eric with an A says that he'll remedy the error, and leaves at once to go get a new cloak. As he's walking away, Sir Criston stops him one more time, and begins to accuse him of being the cause for Jaehaerys' death, and claims that he was murdered on his watch. He goes on to say that it's strange that his brother Eric with an E first betrayed them and now this. But of course we all know that Eric with an A is innocent here. However, he has no proof, and all odds are stacked against him because of the history with his brother. And thus the scheming begins, and Sir Criston decides to send him out on a redemption mission. And that mission is to kill Rhaenyra herself. Though obviously he's hesitant and claims that this is a suicide mission, Criston Cole says that he's perfect for the job because he could just pretend to be his brother Eric with an E, since they are identical twins. We then pop over with Aemon, who is with Madame Sylvie, and he tells her about how Daemon is trying to kill him. And even that being the case, he's saying that he's honored and rather flattered that Daemon attempted to kill him while he was asleep. However, he wasn't really asleep, nor was he with Otto. He was actually with Madame Sylvie at the time. We then get a quick scene with Corlys and Rhaenys, where he asks about the status of Daemon. And this is where we actually get confirmation that he did indeed go to Harrenhal, after flying off from Dragonstone. Now all we can do is just wait to see if he can actually seize it by himself. In the next scene, Rhaenyra talks to Mysaria about her conversations with Daemon, and Mysaria explains the circumstances. She gives him 2 names in exchange for her freedom. Rhaenyra then reveals that Daemon is gone, and that she doesn't know when he'll be back. Back over at King's Landing, we see Aegon's big decision. Since Blood could not tell him who exactly the Ratcatcher was that he was working with, Aegon just decided to hang all of the Ratcatchers. And we do see Cheese was among one of the ones hung, but at the cost of every single Ratcatcher that worked in the palace.
Plot against the king, and I will pay it back 100
They are
times.
fathers and brothers and sons, and their wives and children gather now at our gates to weep and curse your name.
As Otto gets onto Aegon, he shows little to no remorse. He even goes as far as to bring up King Viserys, trying to understand why he is so different from him, and even says that everything and everyone is worse off under Aegon's rule. Otto's insults results to him getting fired, and Aegon names Criston Cole the new Hand of the King. In the next scene, we see that Rhaenyra decides to let Mysaria free. She chooses to give her passage on a Valyrian ship that's going to Myr, and Mysaria thanks her and accepts the offer. As she's being escorted to the ship, she sees a man that looks exactly like Eric with an E. However, as you recall, Eric with an E was accompanying Rhaenyra. Not exactly feeling comfortable about what she just saw, she asks her escort to wait for a moment. So Eric with an A's infiltration into Dragonstone is a success, but he almost gets caught by his brother walking through the halls. He notices that Eric with an E doesn't have his helmet on, so he takes his off. Afterwards, he continues walking down the hall until he makes it to Rhaenyra's room. Once he finds it, he locks one of the main exit doors so she can't escape. Then he dismisses the guard on duty so he can take over his spot. And now, no one is left in his way. As he makes his way inside, Rhaenyra is immediately confused why Sir Eric with an E is here. However, it is not Sir Eric with an E, but rather Sir Eric with an A. And he immediately draws his sword and begins to walk towards her, until Sir Eric with an E shows up. And then all of a sudden, Eric with an A just bomb rushes Rhaenyra, trying to get to her before Eric with an E gets to him. However, Eric with an E doesn't let him. And now the Battle of the Twins begins. And it is near impossible to figure out who is who throughout this entire thing. The only time it's easy to tell is whenever Eric with an A tries to actually go after Rhaenyra. Once Loren arrives, he immediately goes to Rhaenyra to get her to safety, while Sir Eric with an E fends off Sir Eric with an A. Until...
Forgive me.
No!
Yep, both brothers die. So in the next scene, Otto is talking to Alicent about Kristen Cole being Aegon's new Hand of the King. He says the two of them together aren't a good pair, since both of them are blinded by vengeance. Since their plans have now become undone, Otto now intends to return to Old Town, and he says that there's still a chance since Daeron, Alicent's youngest son, is more likely to take kindly to instructions. Alicent says that he should instead focus on going to Highgarden. This is in order to establish a relationship with the Tyrells, and while he's gone, Alicent promises to speak to Aegon, hoping that with time she will be able to persuade Aegon to give Otto back his position. She then proceeds to tell Otto that she has sinned, hinting that she actually wants to reveal what she's been doing with Kristen Cole. However, Otto simply says,
I do not wish to hear of it.
So Alicent then leaves and heads towards Aegon's room, and once she enters she sees him crying, and rather consoling him, she leaves him to mourn the death of his son alone. And in the final scene we see that she's returned to her room with Kristen Cole waiting for her on the bed. She then walks over to him and out of frustration she slaps him. And then she does it again. And again. Until... And that's everything that happened on Season 2, Episode 2 of House of the Dragon. I'll see y'all next episode.